Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to ELINET Research Review with me, Levi. In this occasion, I'm very pleased and honored to welcome our academia and researcher today, Professor Rachel Wicaksono. In this occasion, I'm very pleased and honored to welcome our academia and researcher today, Professor Rachel Wicaksono. Hello, Rachel.
Looking forward to it.
Hi,
Thank you so
Levi.
much.
Nice to see you again.
Right. Yes. So thank you
very much
for
this
joining
is a
us
privilege.
today.
And looking forward to it. Thank you so much.
Introduce you all to our guest today. For joining us today. Wicaksono is a professor of TESOL and applied linguistics and head of the School of Education, Language and Psychology at New York St. John University in the UK. But starting of the School of Education, Language and Psychology at New York St. John University in the UK. But starting Dean of the School of Childhood and Social Care at the University of starting a new role as an executive. She is a co-author of the School of Childhood and Social Care at the University of East London. Third edition in print. She is a co-author of Mapping Applied Linguistics, a guide for students and practitioners. Rachel is also a higher education academy national teaching fellow. Changing Englishes. Brilliant. Again, thank you so much for Rachel is also a higher education academy national teaching fellow. Now let's talk about your research. Brilliant. Again, thank you so much for could you joining us. Briefly explain to us the area of your research, Rachel?
Yes.
To start with,
thank you again,
please briefly explain
for this,
to us the area of your research.
Yeah, really looking forward to talking to you today. And thank you again, Levi, for this opportunity. In brief, really looking forward to research talking to you area explores what we think of brief, as English. My research area. I'll put English in scare quotes. What we think of as English. What we think of as English. I'll put English in scare quotes. I became interested in this topic of what English we think of as English. After many years ago, I became interested in this topic of language. English is London. After many years ago, taking my first job in English language in London, I realized in the UK, and then taking my first job in teacher at India, that time, but I realized that my lessons were, even though I was very inexperienced teacher at that time, but useless. I realized that my lessons that I was teaching, and I honestly, I didn't really know why, and because I was trying really hard and trying to plan students that I was teaching, and I honestly, I didn't really know why, because I was trying really hard and to colleagues, trying to plan at St. John University. When what I much later realized, I went to Indonesia, talking to colleagues at York St. John University, University about language and about linguistics, the academic study of language, and talking to colleagues. I realized that my problem was about language and about linguistics, the academic study of language. I realized that my English language teacher, I was a lack of knowledge about English. The methods, I did an okay job of making the classes lively. I was familiar with, and but it was my lack of knowledge about my subject of making the classes lively and interesting and engaging. But it was my lack of knowledge about my with the students in English that I first taught English language in India. That was they causing the problems grown up speaking with English, the students and their families had spoken English for many generations. They were reading the novels had grown up by Charles Dickens, and their families had spoken English for many generations. Very much they were reading of English novels written by Charles Dickens, and that was my assumption. And my understanding of English was very much foreign language of English as a foreign language, and that was my assumption in my classes with them, that English was a foreign language. So for them, of course, it wasn't. It was that experience, that very practical teaching experience, and then reflecting on that, it was together with colleagues. It was that experience that very practical teaching experience, research, and then reflecting on that, what together with colleagues, and students, that got me into this English research area of exploring what teachers,
excellent,
and students think English is.
So far. I know that you have an excellent research in this field. Now, but what does your research inform about the current perspective? I know that you have an extensive pedagogy, especially in this field, toward the reality what does your research inform about the current perspective in pedagogy, especially
so my research came out of my practical experience. As I said, in India, and then so my research came out of my practical experience. So I'm always interested to connect in India and then in Indonesia, thinking, my exploration with colleagues. I'm always interested and with the students that I teach at York St. John. I'm always interested to connect that exploration with colleagues. and with the students that I teach at York St John, I'm always interested to connect that thinking to their practice. Yes, I want there to be a strong connection between the research and the practice for them. So yes, and I want there to be a strong connection. Maybe between later we'll come on to and the practice, the Changing Englishes course. A bit later maybe in this interview. Later we'll come on to. I'll just say just the Changing Englishes course is that a bit later in this interview. But the aim of that course is to connect. All I'll say about that now is that the sort of the knowledge of linguistics. The aim of that course is to connect English and the language, to connect that with the sort of the knowledge of linguistics challenge of teaching in English and language, to connect that with the practical challenge global use of English, of teaching the reality of the globalized English. Anyway, of course, you asked about the as we global know, English is the reality of the use of English widely around the world. In many different ways, English is to suit the communicative needs widely around the world users. In many different ways, that's to suit the communicative needs those of new users that are evolving. That's as good. New communicative needs evolve, and new users, the language that are evolving, languages evolve as new communicative needs evolve, and it's the language partly those changes that global use of English that is changing what we think of as English. Partly those changes that global use of English that is changing what we think of as English. Described as L2, or it's the people, foreign language users that in the past we might have described as L2. It's those users that are driving foreign language users that we can see in what we think of as it's English, those users around the world that are driving a lot of the change that we can see in what we think of as English. So we need to around the world to pay attention to that and to recognise super exciting that what we think English is. So we need to pay attention to that and to recognise these changes that what we think English is around the world and in different situations. So these changes and those global users of English are a major source around the world and in different situations. And it was really in recognition of that change, those global users of English are a major source. Changing English is, and it was really in recognition of English language teachers that need to know about their subject. Online course, and changing English is. When I took my first job, I English language teachers need to know about their subject, and I didn't. Obviously, when I took my first job, I knew very language teachers know about my subject, and they know how it is being changed. The ideal situation is that English language teachers know about their subject, think about their pedagogy, know how it is being changed by its global in the light users of those, and that they try to think about their pedagogy. I'm not sure if I've answered your question, but anyway, in the light.
Thank you very much.
All of those changes.
Now,
I'm not sure if I've answered your question, but
mentioned that the online course. Thank you very much. Changing Englishes that you co-authored with a colleague in New York. Mentioned that the online course, so MOOCs, Changing Englishes that you co-authored with a colleague in New York behind the creation of this University. So, could you slightly share with us the initial motivations behind the creation of this MOOC?
Behind the creation of Changing Englishes online, which I worked on together with Changing Englishes colleagues at York St John and students on our programme together, mainly with Professor Chris Hall, colleagues who's at York St John and students on our programmes, but mainly with Professor Chris Hall. Who's a professor of applied linguistics at York St John, who created the Changing Englishes Professor Hall course. And so we working with me, who created the Changing Englishes we were teaching course. Both Chris and I were teaching on our MA TESOL, as I said, doing with we were teaching, both students from all over the world on our MA TESOL, and we were talking to them about their experiences in classrooms all around the world, all over the world, and their own use and their students' and we were talking to them about their experiences in classrooms all around the world and their own use and their students' use of uses of English and of understandings of what English is, in the diversity of uses of English, and so together with some students of what English the MA TESOL programme, we designed a research project together with some students the diversity from the MAT of program, uses and we designed a research English project in their home country. So we worked with the diversity 2 students from China and of understandings of what English is in their home country. So we worked with 2 students from China. I'll send you the links, and their head of department because that university was then published as a journal article. So we did a piece of research with our because that student then published. And one of the things that was very we did a piece of research out very clearly from that research, which was students questionnaires and interviews with English language teachers that came at universities out very clearly China from that research, which was questionnaires and interviews with English language teachers very different at universities in China on whether they were thinking about English in the classroom about English outside in very different ways. So when it came to English on whether they were thinking about English in the classroom or English with the idea. So when it came to English outside of the classroom, they were quite communication being with the idea. Number one. When it came to English inside the classroom, communication being communication was number one. Accuracy when it came to English inside the classroom, and accuracy communication was an idea on a belief accuracy that was number one. Standard English exists, and accuracy and was based on an idea any deviation from standard English is inaccurate. Standard English exists or bad. So that is very clear that any deviation from standard English is inaccurate, and therefore their understanding of English outside the classroom. That is very clear. Differentiation between English, their understanding of English outside the classroom and inside the classroom. So about that was super English, super interesting. Is and just one thing about the understanding of it is multiple is not, and that we just one thing. Sometimes we don't know. We haven't thought about our own understanding when we say English, and that we haven't really thought about what we mean. Sometimes we don't know. We haven't thought about our own understanding when we say English. We haven't really thought about what we mean, or between me and Chris, or between me and the MA students have quite different understandings. This course between you and me, or between awareness of the fact, or between me and the MA students, multiple understandings. Wanted this course to really raise awareness of the fact for us to be aware of this multipleness, so that we don't English, and that's really important we don't get mixed up, or we don't miscommunicate. Be aware of this when you say multiple English, so that we don't that my understanding of that concept we don't get mixed up, or we don't miscommunicate. And that when you say of English understanding, so we want that my understanding of that concept might be something different. That's one aim, and that could be the cause. And I suppose the second aim of the course we wanted to raise awareness is more about one aim of the course. Some linguistics. I suppose the second aim of the course is for English language teachers that maybe haven't more about a degree in linguistics. So for English language teachers that maybe haven't got a degree in linguistics, to raise awareness of some of the things that linguists who study language know to teach about languages generally, maybe to raise awareness of some of the things that linguists and from psycholinguistics language know maybe about languages generally. Psycholinguistics, the idea sociolinguistics and from psycholinguistics user has a different set of linguistic resources. The idea that every user has a different set of linguistic resources. In that sense, there are as many Englishes as there are users of English, being idiolect. From every other and then from the sociolinguistic in that sense, there are as many Englishes as there are users of English in very different ways. And then from the sociolinguistic perspective, the idea on our that we use projection of a particular identity, very different ways depending gender or sexuality, depending on age or occupation, projection of a particular identity related to gender or sexuality. One is to raise awareness of what we found in our research, I guess that's the dual purpose. There are multiple understandings. One is to raise awareness of English, of what we found in our research, which was there are multiple understandings more generally of English. English language was to do a bit of linguistics, and then we hope about language teachers will think about English language teachers, and then those multiple ways of thinking about English is relevant. Think their practice about. We don't have any recipes. It's not that kind of course. Multiple ways of thinking about English relevant their practice. 1 step, 2 step, 3. It's not that we don't have any recipes. It's not that kind of course. It's not a do this, do that, or solutions if you like to this problem. It's not that kind of course. Multiple understandings of English. One problem is the kind of issue. Solutions if you like to this. We want those to come from the teachers themselves. Understandings of English. Come up. Problem is it issue because. We want those to come from the teachers themselves to this recording will know there's so much variety in classrooms around the world, and as listeners to this we were to recording will know solutions, there's so much variety in classrooms around the world to anybody that if we were to suggest solutions, it's unlikely that they ideas to come from the bottom up. So we want to encourage teachers to think about ideas to come from their students, their head teachers, policy makers, government officials, about these ideas, about that English is their students, their dynamic, head teachers, that they're overlapping, government officials, about these ideas, that English kind of ideas are dynamic, that they're overlapping. I hope that answers your question. That kind of ideas for the course, changing English's course. I hope that answers your
I mean, as
question.
someone who has a dual role as a practitioner, also as I mean, as someone researcher myself, I found it really useful, as you said, to raise the awareness of the pluralistic ideas myself. I found it really useful, as you said, to raise the awareness of the pluralistic ideas of English. So
in relation
excellent job there.
In relation to
what you said about the multiplicity of ideas about English.
In relation to what
Why
you said
do you
about
think it is important for English language teachers in particular to shift the perspective from monolithic to pluralistic ideas towards English teachers in particular to shift the perspective from monolithic to pluralistic ideas towards English language?
Really good, good question. To challenge the idea that there is one English. The course aims to challenge, as I said, aims to challenge the idea that there is one ideas, as you say. So aims to challenge those monolithic ideas. The idea that English is just one those monolithic ideas, as you say. Center, that monolithic ideas. The idea that English is just one thing, that it has a core, and to try to center that it encourage teachers to think of English less in that monolithic way, like a planet, and more like a galaxy. Encourage teachers to think of English less using this metaphor in that monolithic way, like a planet, and where there is no galaxy, where the boundaries are not clear, and where there's lots of overlapping. A galaxy where there is no core, so where the boundaries are not clear, and where there's lots of overlapping. Your question is why is that galaxies? So which is a very, very good approach. So your question is, why is that important? Which is a very, very good question. I said at the beginning, English is a specialist subject, right? So we should know about it. Well, like I said at the beginning, English is a specialist subject. We should be interested in research about it. So we should know about it from the academic study of English. We should be interested in language more generally. We should be interested in research about it. It's our academic study of English and of language more generally from linguistics. So partly that it's our specialist subject. Proud, keen to explore new ideas, and I think proud, keen to explore new ideas. That it hopefully will help us. I think the other reason is our jobs basically stay relevant as English language teachers. Hopefully, will help us stay. Obviously, the world is changing, and as stay relevant as English language teachers change, and languages, including obviously English, the world is changing, and as the world changes, one of the dangers of not languages, including English, change to meet those needs. So I think maybe one of the dangers about English is that we just become a bit irrelevant to our students, and see pluralistic ideas about Englishes, and perhaps is that we just become a bit irrelevant to our students, and see more hopefully these more pluralistic ideas that they don't want to come to our English is dynamic, that it's hopefully these more pluralistic ideas, for example, other languages is dynamic, that resources overlaps with hopefully that will help us other languages and stay relevant. So resources, that's I think why hopefully that will help us stay in a job and stay relevant. Our perspective from monolithic. I think pluralistic, because it is our specialist subject. We should know about it and perspective from the latest research, which is what pluralistic does. It is our specialist subject. We should know about it, and we'd be interested in the latest research, which is what our specialist subject does. But also it presents the latest research. We want to stay relevant. Be interested to proud of our specialist subjects, but also they won't and we want to stay relevant to our
something that
students
that we don't want to happen. Stop believing that that's something that we don't want to happen. Stop believing that our lesson is that.
That's right.
In your own research, have you found any resistancy in your own research side? Have you found any treating or accept ideas of the plurilithic side, nature of English, treating or to accept the ideas of the plurilithic nature of English? Why do you think might be the cause of this resistancy? If you found them,
it's a really important question.
Might be the cause
really
of
good
this
question.
Resistancy.
It's a really important question. When it comes to really good question, and people who take the course, the Changing Englishes course. Now, when the feedback we get is good, and people who take the course, the Changing Englishes course, the people who take the course are interested. The teachers who take the course are interested in the content. It seems like it is their specialist subject. People who take the course are interested. The teachers who take the course are interested in the content. I think from people who take the course, it is their specialist subject. They are interested. Well, we do get really positive feedback. I think from people who take the course, but of course the people who take the course are only a tiny proportion. We do get really positive of the total English language teachers in the world. But of course the people who take the course are only a tiny proportion. Your question is of the total English language teachers in the world be resistant to some of the more pluralistic approaches, understandings of what English is. Teachers be resistant to some of the more pluralistic approaches, simply practical reason of what English is. When we all have very busy lives. It's a simply practical reason. Lots when we all have very busy published teaching materials, and most jobs tests based on monolithic ideas, teaching materials published that there is standard English, that there is correct English, that there are errors based on monolithic ideas, and that there is standard English, that there is correct English, that there are errors, feel time consuming. And so it's just really time consuming. Create or can be really resources, new materials, feel time consuming. Writing new tests is incredibly challenging. Create new resources, new materials. The existing tests like IELTS, for writing new tests is incredibly challenging, and so because around the world, the existing tests like IELTS, really great challenge for TOEFL, are so well established and so well. I think it's time around the world. A lot of a really great challenge material for teachers, teaching material, course books. I think it's time. Tests a lot of, and of course. The test is interesting, isn't it? Because material course books, head teachers, so maybe your boss, your line manager. And of course, the test is interesting, isn't it? Because maybe is not a language teacher, so maybe your boss, your line manager has performance targets. Maybe is not a language teacher, is not a linguist, to get good marks on a test. Maybe has performance targets you to train and needs students to get good marks on a test. Maybe the parents of that student, and so who are possibly to train for their students to take the test. Wants you to train the maybe the parents of that student test. Who are possibly paying for their balancing these different needs, train their students to take. We're balancing what we know and love about our subject. We're just balancing these different needs, aren't we? We're balancing what we know and love about our subject, which is about their subject, which is monolithic. Balancing what balancing all of those things. So we have to divide up our time, I think, about their subject, which is monolithic. Always we're balancing all of those things. So we have to divide up our time, and I think, to meet these different the final thing, final challenge is super challenging. And I think students perhaps have an expectation that as their teacher, we know all the answers.
Right.
Our students perhaps have an expectation that as their teacher, we know all the answers.
Right. Guru.
That idea, which in English implies, I don't know, you tell me about Indonesian, but in English implies somebody who knows everything. Which in English, I don't know, so you tell me about Indonesian, but in English that implies perhaps somebody who knows everything. Feel really vulnerable. And so it can feel. I don't know. I've never heard that. Perhaps make a teacher feel really vulnerable, or say you find out. You do some more research. I've never heard that to the students. You go and find out, and you come back and tell the class. I mean, you find out. You do some more research. What does the word guru imply? You go and find out, and you come back and tell the class. I mean, what do you think?
I mean,
Eva, what does the word
classic interpretation of that will be someone who knows everything, as you said, because the relations that is established interpretation in Indonesian society someone who knows until recently, as you say, because the relations that is established in Indonesian society until recently, perhaps, teaches is that someone who it's really top down, so the teachers everything again upfront, someone who teaches might be right, although there are knows everything again efforts to so that's kind of shift might be right, although more resident center, right? Efforts
that's
to
true, and
kind of
I can remember seeing those efforts,
more resident center, right?
When I was working there
that's true,
more student centered. I can remember seeing those efforts when I was working there. The question of vulnerability is an important one, isn't it? Because we need to feel confident in our work. The question of vulnerability is an important one, isn't it? Because we confidence need to feel confident in our work, in our openness to new ideas. Shifting that confidence towards confidence in our openness to new ideas. Wrote a book chapter, which I'll put the link. I'll send you the link. But I recently with my daughter wrote a book chapter, which I'll put the link. I started by talking about my experience in India with my daughter. We sort of do like I started by talking about my experience in India, a critical biography of the way that we've changed our thinking about English language teaching, like a critical biography of the way that we've changed our thinking about English language teaching. Some of those ideas going back to that vulnerability at the beginning about the benefits, and we sort of weave in some of those ideas about vulnerability and the benefits, sort of more vulnerable, but also some of the drawbacks or risks, and being maybe everyone's got sort of more for me now, of course, because I as a teacher older, the risks are quite small. Everyone's got for me now, of course, because for a younger teacher who is establishing themselves, the risks are quite small, feel bigger. But for we try to write for a younger teacher who is establishing themselves, so yes, I think the idea of resistant is a important, we try to write about in this very relevant question. Thank you. So I think the idea of resistant is
we are going to put the link to the book chapters and also to changing English online later in the description. Going to put the link to the book chapters and also to changing English online later in the description. Will be the last two questions.
Thank you.
The last questions related to global English and this will be the last two questions. I mean the last questions related to global English and could you share some tips on how teachers might benefit online from these books? Could you share some tips on how teachers might benefit the most from these books? Of course.
Thank you. There are so my first suggestion is please do the course. Cover of course different understandings of English. So there's monolithic and pluralithic examples is in one of the units. Different understandings of English. So there's monolithic and pluralithic examples is in one of the units. In the UK and around the world. How we global language is English is the second unit. The third unit is in the UK and around the world. Languages are global languages. So language acquisition. The second unit. The third unit of linguistics about how languages are learned. In the fourth unit, we look at teaching and so the input of linguistics for teachers and how they might respond from the bottom up. In the fourth unit, we look at teaching and so the implications for teachers. And then the fifth unit and how they might respond from the bottom up ideas. So some of changing more pluralistic ideas. And then the fifth unit is about changing other people's ideas, changing your boss. So the parents of your students. So please do the course. Maybe policymakers, politicians, and if you contribute to some of the discussion boards, there are interactive discussion boards. If you do the course, then you can, if you contribute to some of the discussion boards, there are interactive discussion boards. Certificate as part of the course. Then you can York St John University request a certificate at the end of the course. So you get kindly funded from the first version York St John University, and the British Council, who kindly funded the first version of the online course. Some other suggestions about how to use it once you've done the course yourself. Actually, there are some suggestions on the course itself, how to use it once you've done the course yourself. Actually, there are some suggestions on the course itself, and so I've put a few suggestions in how you might adapt the materials if you've done teacher training courses. So if you're a senior teacher, I've put a few suggestions for how you might adapt the materials if you do college or university courses. So if you're a senior teacher, you have responsibility for CPD, school or other teachers, there's a few ideas for how you might, have responsibility, because the course CPD is quite long. So if you want to do shorter, few ideas workshops for how you might, because the courses that you work with, there's a few ideas for how you might adapt the materials, shorter workshops to make them suitable for teachers that you work with. There's a few ideas for how you might adapt the materials in person to make them suitable or face to face. The materials are all Creative Commons, either in the license is Creative Commons, so that means they're free. The materials are all Creative Commons and free to adapt. The license is Creative Commons, so that means they're free, no charge, no copyright restrictions, and free to adapt. To do is just say what the source of the material. So you can copy. And in fact, what we've done on the online, all you have to do is just say what the source of the material Word document. So you can copy all of, and in fact, what we've done on the and all of the pictures on there is just include a Word document to copy and paste all of the text sections and all of the pictures on there. If you're doing face to face, easy for you to copy and paste. So yeah, you're free to do that. All you need to do is just say what the source of the material was, CPD, for example. Yeah, you're free to do that to the website. All you need to do is just say what the source of the material was. So all free, name and maybe the link to the website. We just ask that you let us know what you think about it. All free. If you've got any suggestions, we just ask that you let us know what they thought about it, what you think about it. If we're hoping, if you've got any suggestions, if you've used it with materials in the course, will change. What people think English is and that will change the way they teach English. With the materials in the course will if you have any what people think any evidence or and will change the way they teach English, of how your ideas so if you have any is or your teaching evidence or any change examples as a result of how your ideas to hear about what English is or your teaching practice have changed, get in touch as a result. That would be amazing to hear. So yeah. Please, contact details on the website. Get in touch and let us know me or Chris. So yeah, so how you might use it, contact details on the website. Simple answer is please use it and let us know
exactly.
So yeah, and so how you might use it.
In fact, the course
simple answer is please use it.
Can be exactly. Accessed and in fact the units, course right? So for example, if people don't have time to go through the first unit to the last, they can just jump from one unit to the units, right? So for example, if people don't have time to go through the first unit to the last, they can just jump from one unit to the other.
Absolutely, yeah, it's totally flexible between the units. Yeah, so it's totally flexible. Hopefully designed for busy teachers, or you can have gaps between the units.
Amazing.
So
I am a user myself, and I really enjoy using it.
For busy teachers.
Okay. It's amazing. Right, so the last I'm a user myself and I really enjoy using it. Research review now. Okay. Right, again, so the last question yourself, what is the specific research topic do you think we should explore further? Again, especially in relation to global English research topic do you think in pedagogy we should explore further, especially in relation to global English?
Your questions are great. In really pedagogy question. Well, you and I today have talked about teachers, haven't we? And teaching English is designed for teachers. Well, you and I today have talked about teachers, haven't we? And teaching English is designed for teachers. But I think another super interesting would be to sort of talk to students. Next step. It's kind of obvious, I suppose, which would be super interesting to talk to our students, talk to students to hear their voices. It's kind of obvious, I suppose, but how they are conceptualizing to our students to hear their voices. Our study, the original study that we did with conceptualizing English, the students on the MA, our study, the original study that we did with China, that focused on teachers. It might be possible to replicate that study, the ones that were from China, that focused on teachers. And what might be really cool would be to replicate that, to compare what we hear from the students with what we hear from the teachers. What might be really cool would be to what you and I have been talking about is a little bit based on assumptions with what we hear about like the teacher as guru and stuff like that. What you and I have been talking about is a little bit based on assumptions. Maybe that's not their expectation. Like the teacher as guru and should know everything. But maybe students don't care. We're just assuming that it maybe is. That's maybe not their expectation anymore. Teachers should know everything. As teachers, be a bit more vulnerable, assuming that it is bottom up, and we can, as you said, relax a little bit as teachers. It'll be a bit more vulnerable and sort of bottom up. And so I think that could be the next step, is to replicate that study that we did with the teachers. It'll be okay, and then compare and contrast, with what. So I think that could be the next step, is to replicate that study that we did with the teachers, help, and then maybe compare and contrast a little bit of confidence. I don't know, to be a bit more say sort of English, as and help, then maybe giving the teachers a little bit of confidence. I don't know, to be a bit more possibility sort of vulnerable. Is one thing that I'm super interested in at the moment. The last thing I'll say as a possibility, English language teachers, we should. One thing that I'm super interested in at the moment is on whether English language teachers, we should. But more on communication, on with English, how global English less on language to meet new communicative needs, communication around with the world. How global English maybe we should evolve just to meet really new communicative needs around forget about language. Who cares? So maybe we should. It doesn't matter really which language focus on communication. It doesn't get about whether it's even language. Maybe it doesn't matter be which language get used. It doesn't matter whether it's even language. Maybe and recognise that be more multimodal. Objects form part of the way that we communicate. And recognise that actually and objects with our students the way that we communicate. Maybe they're not completely be too radical, but partly and in our classes with our students. So partly, maybe so today we're not even going to mention too radical, but we're not even going to mention language. In our classes, we're going to think about that. About all of the ways that you are communicating. We're not even going to mention English. We're not even going to mention language. We're going to talk about all of the ways that you are communicating with each other that you have available. The full using the full range of communicative resources. That would mean we had no job. I don't know. Available. We are employed to teach English, so we have to be a bit careful. I don't know. Maybe that would mean we had no job. I don't know, because we are employed to teach English, so we have to be a bit careful with this. School is all, as I said earlier, we do want to keep designed to don't make subjects. And in school, it's so hard, isn't it? Because school is all schools around the world are designed as one of those subjects. Isn't really, is it? English is so different from history, geography, and maths. It's treated as one of those subjects. Maybe we can find, I don't know, 5 minutes, 10 minutes in our classes from history, experiment with so different. Maybe we can find, I don't know, 5 minutes, 10 minutes in our classes language to experiment with something that is not even communication and not even considered language. Maybe that's a bit too radical, but I think it would be super interesting to think about that. I don't know. Maybe
absolutely,
that's,
especially because we know that
too radical, but I think it would be super interesting.
Current research also suggested that absolutely, especially because we know that not only that we use the full range research of also suggested any linguistic repertoire, but also community nowadays. Not only that we use the full range multimodalities, definitely any linguistic repertoire, but also that's embedded in non-communication, right? In global communication, multimodalities definitely something.
I mean, Indonesia is a great example, isn't it? Because all of my students there were multilingual. Definitely. I mean, Indonesia is a great example, isn't it? Because all of my students there were multilingual in a monolithic way, as if these languages exist. So excuse me, I'm going to talk strategic essentialism in a monolithic way. So they were languages exist. They were learning English. So users of English, users of strategic essentialism, and they were all users of Javanese. So they were, they were learning Javanese. They were users of English, levels of Bahasa Indonesia, talking to, and they were all users of Javanese as well. Within Javanese, linguistic resources, levels had. You're talking to, and really, as we know from research into range of linguistic resources that my students stored separately in their head, and all, as we know from research into trans languages, in addition to separately in their clothes that they decided to wear, their styles to use. In addition, the way that they sat in their chairs, that they decided to the objects that they surrounded themselves with, like my two. The way that they sat in their chair, books, the objects that they surrounded themselves with, like my my dog's here at the back. Indonesia is really interesting. Books of that, the sort of etc. Multimodality. So communication. Indonesia is a really interesting example of that. Yeah, that would be sort of multimodality of our
definitely something to explore further.
Yeah.
Okay.
That would be fun.
All right. Yeah, that will be definitely something to explore further. Thank you so much again, Rachel, for this engaging and insightful interview. That will be everything. Best of luck. Thank you so much again, Rachel, for this engaging and insightful interview. And thank you so much for your new role watching or will be watching this recording. Thank you so much for don't forget everyone to like this video and also to subscribe to our channel so you won't miss any of and don't forget to like this video and also to subscribe to our channel so you won't miss any of our website elinet.org.uk so you won't miss any of our and don't forget also to visit our website elinet.org.uk so you won't miss any of our future events.
Thank you.
That is all for now. Thank you again, Rachel, and see you again, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
See you.